All right, everybody, welcome back to the Systematic Magic Podcast. And we are joined, well, this is actually marketing royalty is in the house. I am so excited. I've been looking forward to this interview now since it's been on the calendar. We are lucky to have Ben Glass with us, a longtime Kennedy lifer, a attorney, a father to, I'm going to get the number wrong, 13?
Yes.
Nine. I keep adding to your family.
Seven grandkids.
A phenomenal soccer referee, amongst all of the other things that he does. Ben, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
It's good to catch up with you a bit, Vance, before we went live. It was always fun. And this is going to be fun. As I said before we went live, I've been doing, we're very busy. We've been doing a lot of these interviews. The book, No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs, released this week. We broke Amazon on the first day, meaning it kind of ran out of books because they didn't order enough. But I talked to Dan Kennedy yesterday for an hour, and we'll be releasing that one shortly. But it was fun. It was fun to work with Dan. I mean, it was almost a year ago today that he first faxed me and said, "Hey, would you want to play in this new book?" And I said, "Vance," I said, "Yeah," but I'm really busy because we're getting ready for our conference and stuff. I go, "How much time do you guys?" He goes, 30 days. I said, "Okay, yes." I said, "Yes." And then I figured out how to go do it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's lesson number one. That's what entrepreneurs do. We just say yes and then figure it out, especially when it's a great opportunity.
It was a huge opportunity to be aligned with Dan. The first edition, so this is the fourth edition. And Vance, the first edition came out probably about 20 years and maybe a little bit longer ago. And when I read that first edition, I distinctly remember I was on vacation. I went to a payphone. I called my office, my law firm office, and I said, "Hey, from now on, we're not taking any inbound, unscheduled phone calls. Everything is going to be by appointment." They said, "You're crazy. What are you reading? What are you drinking? That'll never work. People will be pissed off." And I changed it. And since then, for over 20 years, 25 years, like everything has been done by appointment. And it makes the whole client experience better. So, I know a lot of your folks are like you and I, we're running businesses. And I think, and Dan and I were talking about this on the call yesterday. It's like, okay, so it used to be that like the marketing, like that was the biggest problem to solve, like getting more leads, but it's not. Today in 2024, the biggest problem is what you teach. It's getting the customer experience to be extraordinary because customer experience is so bad, mainly, right? And so if you can fix this, and one of the ways we fixed it was by making sure, Vance, if you want to talk to me, you're going to get a chance to talk to me if you're a client, but I'm going to be prepared. You're going to be prepared. My team's going to already have sussed out like what questions you have and what documents I need to answer your question. And we're going to have an A+ call. So think about that for the folks listening to this, like compared to the last company you called and tried to get anything out of, or how it works in your own business. Like, do your customers, clients, patients, do they walk away going, "Wow, like these guys know what they're doing"?
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I've just finished an article for my newsletter, and there is a tie between calling a customer service center or calling your in-laws. And it's like, which is worse? And they're tied, which is, I don't know if that's a sad state of affairs for customer experiences or in-laws are getting worse, but
yeah, I mean, it's so what it is for guys like you and me and the folks that we hang out with, it's opportunity. It just spells opportunity.
huge.
Because it's the little things, it's training on it, it's hiring the right people. Okay, I get it, hiring can be hard, but you can train the ones you have, right? And this is how we differentiate in a law market. I mean, we are personal injury lawyers. There's only like a billion of them. And
Right.
but what we're really good at what we do, and we are spectacular at the level of service, like how the client feels when they're dealing with us.
Right. And you get that way by, using the term managing your time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So one of the things Dan and I talk about in the book, and we riffed on a bit yesterday, was like people would look at us and go, "You guys must be really disciplined. Like you get all this stuff done." And Dan invited me into the book because I do have 9 kids, run 2 businesses, do CrossFit, referee soccer games, married 43 years, all of those sort of things. And he and I both laughed, like we are not disciplined people. right? We're as susceptible as the next human being to distraction. But what we have done and what the book teaches you to do is how to build structures around you. And we'll talk about the philosophy of like how important you are to the world as an entrepreneur. But we build these structures so that we don't have to make decisions. We don't let willpower, which can get tired. You get tired by the end of the day or the end of the week, and your willpower drops. But if you have structures around you, like nobody can get through, like my phone that I'm holding up to the camera, it doesn't beep, ding, vibrate. It doesn't have any work email on it. So it's like, that's never a distraction the way most people's phones are distracted. So build the structures. You don't have to spend so much time like trying to figure out what's the answer to, do I answer this call or not?
Right. And, and I'll show you my phone as I hold up.
That's right.
I hold up my flip phone.
Don't lose that, baby, because you're not going to be able to replace it.
Yeah, no. Actually, they're coming back. Supposedly, my kids said it's the cool thing to have now.
You know where they're coming back?
versus-
You know where I see them, Vance? I see them in the AARP magazine. That's
Yeah,
like for seniors. There we go. That's why it's
big numbers on it.
Yeah.
But you hit something though, and I'm exactly the same way. I mean, I don't have alerts on my computer. Nothing goes ringy dingy. And that's one of the huge topics you guys cover in the books is something you guys call time bandits or time vampires.
Time vampires. Yeah.
That was Time Bandits is a movie. Time vampires, things that either distract or, reduce or drain your productivity. What are some others and how do you combat them?
Well, first, let's just talk about the time vampire part first, because time vampire is really anyone or any device these days that is just reaching into your pocket to steal your wallet of time. Okay. And we guard our wallets, our physical wallets and our credit cards, but we let people walk in our door anytime. Hey, I just need you for a few minutes. And here's how you manage this. Your team needs you. And depending on how large your organization is, either your leadership team's going to need you or your direct reports are going to need you. So you create time for them to have access to you, for them to have access to your brain, but it's on your terms, not theirs. And then you set rules, Vance, like, hey, Vance, if you're coming to me with a problem, something you can't figure out, okay, that's cool. You're going to learn. Bring me 3 solutions. Tell me which one you would pick if I wasn't here, if I was on a cruise or something. And now let's talk about that. And most of the time, because there's another whole chapter on decision making, most of the time your decision is going to be good enough, not going to be fatal. Could it be made better? Absolutely, it could be made better, right? Entrepreneurs believe like, oh, nobody could think about this problem as good as I could. Well, probably true, but good enough is good enough. And that way, the team starts to do what? They start to get confident in their decision making. Another thing I talk about in the book is a technique that we use in the law office is when Ben is talking to a client. It's relatively rare, but I do. So my space is in long-term disability insurance claims. We represent a lot of high wage earners across the country, entrepreneurs really who have, and CEOs who have some disability going on. But when I'm talking to a client on the phone, I'm pointing to the phone here, that's on speakerphone. And my team members are invited in so that they can hear how I talk to them, what I say. And then when the call is over, we go, do you have any questions? And I tell them why I say that, so that the next time someone's asking the questions that were just asked on this call, which are usually procedural questions, not like case specific questions, my team now has the confidence to know the answer and the confidence to give the answer. And when you have a business, Vance, as you know, where your team is really representing your brand, like they are you, and in some cases better than you at these things. Now you have a real business, not just a job. You have something that produces, I believe, happiness for you, wealth for you, time freedom, people freedom, all those things that our friends, that you and I tend to hang out with, dream about.
Yeah, no doubt. So, some of those time vampires, for those of us that have either the luxury or the downfall of having a home office, dogs barking, kids screaming, I've come up with my own solution, and I bought a traffic light and it sits out front of my door. And for days like today, when you and I are doing an interview, the traffic light's on red, which means don't come in unless like you're broken arm. And even then, just hold on, because you can wait 20 minutes. Um, do you have any advice for that maybe is not as drastic as my solution? For managing, family members or loved ones that might be encroaching on our time.
Well, that's an environmental problem. Okay. Same thing for me so my youngest is 22 now, but I've got 9. So there was lots of times when there was lots of people running around the house. And so there was a time after I read the first edition of No BS Time Management, and I had a much smaller physical office in town, and my house was always noisy. So that's just not a good environment. And it's really hard, Vance, to like fix that without a big door and a big lock. But the thing I did, Dan taught me this, I rented some space. It was $300 a month. It was in another crappy, like capital C level business building where I had put no name on the door. I did not sign up for the phone. I did not sign up for the internet. It literally had a table and a chair and a small bookshelf. And I would go there when I really needed to do some deep work. I would go there. It was in the opposite direction from my real law office. And so I physically created the environment that protected me from everybody. And so that's an answer. Look, if you can't afford it, that's hard. But I would argue that if you tracked your time and you're working from a home office and the dogs and the kiddos are always like disrupting your thinking, and Dan and I talk about this in the book, if you start to really track how long it takes to get back on track and be productive, you might decide that spending $300 a month again, no one's going to come visit you there, right? Yep. That's the whole point. So it doesn't have to be anything except have a door on it with a lock.
Right. Yeah, usually it's pretty good here because the wife works, the kids are in school. It's just summer times. It gets a little rough around here.
It does. And if you have dogs and the Amazon guys ring your bell, like I have not figured out the solution for that, right?
Well, the sign on the door that says "Do not knock" just doesn't work either.
Yeah, because the dog sees the Amazon truck pull up the driveway.
Yeah. Which is kind of a segue into a little bit of self-control and what you need within yourself. And at the same time, one of my pet peeves, whatever you want to call it, is punctuality. I mean, anybody coming to sell to me, if I'm meeting them, at a coffee shop or something like that, if they ain't there by like 2 minutes after, I'm packing up and leaving because it's a waste of my time. And well, I got a cup of coffee out of it. What are some of the ways that that entrepreneurs can create that discipline, not only for outside people, but for themselves to be punctual and have that self-control?
Well, I think, yes, exactly. So if you want other people to respect your time, Vance, and to show up on time, and I'm just like you. So I'm the guy. As you know, I've been refereeing soccer games for over 50 years now. Right? I'm the old dude if you see me out here in Northern Virginia. But I'm not the oldest. But I'm the guy, if the standard is show up 30 minutes before the game, I'm there an hour before the game. Like I want to make sure I know where I am, where the field is, all of that stuff. And so the first principle is if you want it from other people, you have to model it. There is no excuse. You cannot, you will attract bad punctuality people. I didn't want to say bad people, but you will attract late people if you are always late. So you have to make this internal decision. And I don't know that there's a way to trick your brain to this. I have tricked my family. They'll never listen to this podcast. But I'm the guy, when I say we're leaving at 8:30 in the morning, to me, that means the car is in reverse going down the driveway, Vance, at 8:30 in the morning. Like if I was by myself, that's what would be happening. It doesn't mean 8:50. And so what I've learned to do is to say, the leave time is 8:10. And then we get up by 8:30. So that's right. You have to model it, and then you have to do exactly what you just did. I did this earlier today. Somebody, they make an appointment with me to be on a Zoom call for me to help them do something, and they don't get there by 3 minutes late. In my office, that means I get off the Zoom call, and when they call back, I tell my team they go to the end of the friggin' line, which right now might mean it's 90 days before you can get back in. All right.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you're honestly a client, right? Like you learn that I will be ready, but I expect you to come to the call on time. Now a client might not push back 90 days, but you're not going to get, oh, can I call you tomorrow? No, no,
Right.
because of another thing, which we do a lot, which is in the book, and that's this whole concept, Vance, of time blocking. So many people, most people probably have a to-do list, right? Dan and I were joking yesterday. We both were, we used day timers. You may have used day timers. It was a boxed set of 12 little pads, January through December. Each open it up, each had a day, and you would make your list of things to do, and you'd give A, B, C, and if you didn't get it done, you carried it over to the next day. Okay, it was good enough. It was good enough in the day. But today, I don't really have a to-do list. All right. If something comes up that I need to do, I'll write it down, but it doesn't stay there for longer than that day. One of three things has to happen, Vance. One, I got to find a place on the calendar to do it. Or two, I got to delegate it. Or three, I go, it ain't that important, right? So I'm not doing it at all. And so time blocking is taking that list, which you don't walk around with a long list and it just keeps getting longer and longer. You have to find time on the calendar to put it. And this is what it will teach you. There ain't enough time. There really isn't enough time. And if there isn't enough time by doing time blocking, in other words, I run out of the hours, then what happens to most entrepreneurs is they steal time, Vance, and they steal it from their families. So entrepreneur, business owner, founder, he and she, we are the ones coming in early, leaving late, coming in Saturday, coming in on the weekends, while the team is like they've done their 40 hours or whatever it is. And our family wants to know, like, oh, why don't you get a real job instead of trying to run this business? Because you're either never here, or even when you're here, Vance, what? You're on your damn phone, right? So time blocking, and the strategy is this. It's like everything has a begin time and an end time. And right after the end time, maybe there's a little 10-minute window, but there's something else behind it. And what this trains your brain to do, Vance, because you'll screw it up in the beginning. It'll be hard. Like, oh, I block, an hour for a meeting and the meeting goes an hour and 15. Over time, you'd start to train your brain that meeting can only be an hour. And Dan's view, and it's on this interview I did with him, it's like, no meeting needs to be more than 20 minutes.
Right.
Like he's got a coach, individual private coaching clients. He paid Dan Kennedy a lot of money, justifiably, and for one 20-minute call about 8 or 9 times a year. Like, and most people go, oh my God, like, how would you get stuff done in 20 minutes? Well, if you know it's only 20 minutes, you're prepared. You're exchanging whatever documents need to be exchanged before the call. You're thinking deeply about the problem. You are not chit-chatting, because you wouldn't want to pay someone a really high fee just to chit-chat, I don't think. And you get stuff done. And so that's what we do. So the time blocking strategy is, and it's kind of related to knowing how you're spending your time now, right? So years ago, my friend Lee Miltier taught us in Peak Performers, and I think you were in there with me in that group probably. It's like, let's just keep a really good record for, she said 5 days, no one can do it more than 3, in 15-minute increments, what you just did.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we all think we're busy and we're productive, but the reality is we may be busy, but we're not that productive, right? And so knowing how you're actually spending your time, and Dan talks in the book about valuing your time. Like, okay, what is, if you want to do top line revenue of $1 million a year, like, and you're going to work X number of productive hours in a year, like, how much is your time really worth? Because what we want you to do, what Dan Kay and I want you to do, Vance, is to work in your zone of genius. Like, and that's the thing you like doing and you're good at, right? And that the world will pay you for. Let's spend more time in that quadrant, Vance, and realize that for stuff I don't like to do but needs to get done, there's somebody else in the world. Again, we have 5 people in the Philippines who are doing stuff that would not light me on fire. Lights them on fire.
Yep.
They make more money on our economy than they do in their economy. They work our hours, American hours, so it's middle of the night there. But you know what? It's hot as hell in the Philippines, and they go to an air-conditioned office, right?
Right.
Work from their home. So there's all sorts of win-win scenarios. That's a little bit of a rant.
Yeah.
And the reason we have this rant, Vance, is because so much of what this book is about, and this is what makes No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs different from the other time management books, is that you and I, we are entrepreneurs. We have to go out and kill something and bring it back to the cave this week. We
100%.
cannot afford slow thinking. We cannot afford slow decision making. And so while people get attracted to the book, oh, there's strategies and techniques. Yes, there are. It's the philosophy of living and the philosophy of life, and recognizing that as an entrepreneur, like, you are a highly valuable person to society, like, especially working. I know you've got some clients and customers in other parts of the world, but in the American entrepreneurial capitalistic society, it's like the world needs us because we're the only sane ones. We're providing jobs and services and goods to people, and people pay taxes, and it's all good. But if we don't have our crap together, if we're cheating our families out of time, if we're burned out because you can't manage time, what good are we? Like, Vance Morris is no good. He's going to go and give a presentation on the experience and upping the experience if you're all just exhausted because you let the time vampires steal your time. You didn't understand time blocking. You have a to-do list that's not really helpful because it doesn't have end time. Again, long rant, but folks can see, I hope that we're pretty excited about this. We're into it. And we believe that you, and I'm speaking to you, you entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast, like, you are the engine of the world. And so hats off to you for taking that risk. You deserve everything that you get, all of the riches and wealth and time freedom you get. You deserve it because there's nobody there at the beginning who's there helping you, right? You
don't feel guilty about it.
Don't feel guilty. Oh, hell no.
Don't feel guilty about it. The whole thing with time blocking, and I mean, I'm not going to show you my calendar, but I mean, I have, when I'm at the gym is on the calendar. When I'm taking a lunch break is on the calendar. When I'm going to a kid's soccer game is on the calendar. I mean, everything is there and it holds its place. I mean, my writing time is on the calendar, and, and I've got my timer, and I set it for however many minutes. And to-do list is one little 3x5 card, which you can't really see, but it's only got 4 items on it, and 3 of them are checked off. You're absolutely right, and that rant was instructive, and I hope people really take that to heart. That was a good rant, Ben.
Yeah, thanks. Well, here's the other thing is, when you take it out of your brain and you put it on the calendar, now your brain, you just don't have to worry about it. So, for example, I told you before we went live that we have a very important brief that's due at the end of the week, right? And so, blocking in advance, like weeks ago, the blocks that I knew that I would be sheltering myself, sheltering in place, as they say, right? With big ass lock on the door, red. I actually have a red. Hold on, is this going on video? Are we putting this on video?
Yeah. Let me see it. Yep, I love it.
Stop, engaged in deep work, goes outside the door, right? So, but weeks in advance, blocking out that time and protecting that time that I know I would need just deep work to write this brief now takes the worry. I don't wake up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, like, I have all this stuff to do. When am I going to find time to do it? Now, that's the discipline. See, it's not being disciplined in the moment. It's being disciplined to plan your life and reject all of the naysayers, Vance, who go, that's not going to work in my business. You don't understand my business. Like, I have customers, I have clients, I have patients. Like, yeah, but everybody does, right? And there's some of us who are at the 1%, right? And then there's the kind of this 80% base. And I argue you want to play in the 1 to 20% top of the pyramid. Kennedy writes about this a lot, right? Or you can just choose. You can just choose to be average. And if that's a deliberate choice, that's fine. But you can choose to be ruthless about this. And when we talk about being ruthless, it doesn't mean mean. I'm not an asshole, right? But it means we pay attention, right? So people know, and my team knows they will have time with me. And they know that we as a firm make more money. There's never any fires. No one is working here at night. No one is working here on the weekends. And I would argue that is different from 99% of all law firms in America, right? Because we're organized and because we pay attention and we control clients. Clients don't control us.
Yeah, and you talk about, the weekend work and the overnight work, and I think that's where the big dumb companies get it wrong. I don't know if you caught the Wall Street Journal yesterday or today talking about one of the biggest banks in the U.S. is actually killing its employees by working them overnight. Junior bankers are expected to work till 4 or 5 a.m. And there was this athlete who was a junior banker. You'd think he'd be in shape. They literally worked him to death, even though they got policies in place. It just
it sounds like a big law. I mean, so in big law, and in my coaching business, because I coach law firms, solo and small firm law firms, how to have great lives by having great business. And I've also met in my practice big law lawyers. I make all this money. Well, shit, because you're working 2 jobs. When you're 100-hour work week, that's like 2 jobs. No wonder they're paying you the quote big money. They're not actually. They're killing you.
Yep, 100%. So how do you look at, how does decision making, or even being, maybe that's not the right word, decisiveness, how does that play into this whole, no BS time and productivity? I mean, how does that fit in?
In my 43 years of marriage, and I talk about this in the book, we love each other dearly, and we have a lot of things in common. The one thing Sandy and I do not have in common is how we make decisions. And this is sometimes a source of friction. Dan told me same in his family. And it's because I make decisions quickly because my philosophy is that there's very few things that you could decide on if you have reasonable choices, where choices 2 and 3 will be fatal, right? They may not be the absolute best decision in retrospect, but it is far better to put the ball in play, right? And then change course later than it is to spend an inordinate amount of time trying to decide, for example, like what color, I'm looking at the wall, like what color paint should we put on the wall? Who cares, right? It's all going to be fun. And there's people that are better at that than me. So that's the other thing is, so you want to get as many accurate facts. If we're talking business decisions, you want accurate facts, not opinions. You want accurate facts, not how I feel about something, right? First. And so you got to have trusted people and procedures and processes that will deliver to you, the decision maker, if you're making that decision, accurate facts. And then you just have to know that you're going to make a mess, that sometimes you're going to be dead wrong. We all have that sign on our wall that says it seemed like a good idea at the time, right? Okay. And you live with that because, Vance, we have chosen to be entrepreneurs. We have chosen to play in this space where we put our ideas into the universe and we take risk. And again, the rewards can be very, very high. And, you make mistakes, those can hurt a lot too. Like we've all been there. But the alternative is that we spend too much time and the more time that we spend thinking about something does not necessarily mean the decision is going to be better. So that's a source of conflict that many entrepreneurs have with their teams, maybe with spouses, and maybe sometimes with business partners who are the good business partner, but they're not really the visionary. Like visionaries, we make messes for other people to clean up, but we're okay with that. And we hire people and we train them and we accept that we're going to be okay. Now, going back to your team, they're going to make mistakes too. And in my opinion, you have to be the person that says, great, you fell down and you skinned your knee. Now we know what not to do the next time. But it's hardly ever going to be totally fair. I mean, I work in the legal space. Like we make strategic decisions all the time. There's hardly any one strategic decision I can make in a case that's going to deep six the case. And it just isn't. Now we've got a ton of experience and I've got good team members that bring me accurate facts, right? But I think that the power of having this confidence that this is the way it's supposed to be, that we make messes. Like that's, yes, congratulations. What you're supposed to be doing. Will get you farther in life, particularly as a business entrepreneur, than playing small, waiting to get input from people who actually don't have the either don't have the facts, the authority, the experience to give you any input. And that's the other, that's a big distractor in the world too, man. So that everybody's got an opinion. Who cares? I don't care. Like, yep. If you're not running a business as big as mine and you're not as happy as I am, unless I ask for your opinion, I'm not really listening.
Yeah.
I don't care.
It's funny. I used to be part of a franchise system, and I've got a phenomenal Google pay-per-click guy. I mean, just amazing. And so I asked him, I said, how are other people doing? What's going on here and there? And he tried to tell me that I should not put more money into this Google guarantee thing. And I said, well, why not? He goes, well, other franchises have said anybody that calls, they never get the job. And it's, or if they do, it's a real crap job. And I said, can I see the numbers on that? Nope, don't have them. It's all anecdotal. So I went and did my own research, had my team put together all the calls for 30 days on the month, came up with it. And wouldn't you know that the results were completely opposite of what everybody's opinion was. And had I just gone off of, what he said, which, I mean, I trust the guy, but if I hadn't questioned the opinions and backed it up with facts, as you eloquently said, I would have made a bad monetary decision for the company. So
this is exactly what entrepreneurs are paid to do. Like, we are paid to free up our time from all of the things that aren't what you just described, which is thinking at the highest level, right? And what this book will help you do is reinforce for you who have any doubts that yes, this will work in your business. And yes, this is how the elite small biz entrepreneur works. The guys running the big dumb companies, they have boards they have to report to. They have people whose opinions don't matter, but they have to matter because that's just the way the corporate world works. That doesn't bridle us at all. It's kind of funny because, as you know, back in March, I had the triple bypass surgery and I committed in the hospital the day before the surgery, I was going to have the fastest recovery ever for a 66-year-old to CrossFit and soccer referee. So I was back in the CrossFit gym in about 10 weeks, do it back to class, world record. And people would say to me, Vance, did your doctor clear you for that? I said, my doctor is not my jailer, right? I didn't ask my doctor. I played smart. I did the cardiac rehab. I knew my heart was functioning well. And then I said, well, I want to be with my friends, so I'm going to go there. So again, this is the advantage that the owners of small businesses, who are the people that you and I talk to most, this is the advantage that we have, is that there are no rules. We don't have to pay attention to the rules that the big corporations run by. It makes us nimble. That's why, around every giant Home Depot, you can also find mom and pop hardware store that's killing it, right? That's why Amazon has not put out every business yet, because they're small biz that kill it. I was visiting was in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, and like small privately owned bookstore. Like that's my heaven. It was a very tiny bookstore. But we went in there, like, the guy's, he's one of us fans. He's like, I'm like, how's business? He goes, business is actually great because we got tourists come in here. They drop in, they buy his book. They did not have a giant selection. It was a small, tiny bookstore, but that he can run it the way he runs it. All of you who are listening to this, and if you follow me on LinkedIn, reach out at some point. If you're like, I read the book and I have this question about this, I will try to help you. Honestly, God, like I will try to help you. And there's actually, I won't give it away on this. So you got to go read the book, but there's a URL in this book for me where you can get almost free consulting time with me. But let's not tell people. I do want you to go and buy the book at Amazon.
I won't tell you what page it's on.
Make it a bestseller. Yeah. And Dan said it was crazy. I'm like, no, like I enjoy it. I manage it, right? So it's not overwhelming what this special offer is. But you gotta actually read the book.
Got to read the book.
Yeah.
So this has been great, but I want to be respectful of your time. But there's one thing that I wanted to make sure that we covered, and you kind of went real quickly through this thing of turning time into money and knowing what an hour of your time is actually worth, so that time now becomes an asset as opposed to, a liability where you've run out of it. Just, in a couple of minutes, can you
Sure
talk about that philosophy?
It's this. It is, first of all, knowing what it is you want to make, how much money do you want to make and bring into your business. And then it's being really honest with yourself. And this is why the Lee Miltier time tracking exercise is so valuable, where if I followed you around for 3 days with a notepad and just wrote down everything you did in 15-minute increments, like what would I see? And you'll see that, you're not spending 8 hours, you're not spending 40 hours. It's, your productive time is, I don't know, maybe 10 hours. And some stats, it's much less than that for entrepreneurs and executives running businesses. Okay, let's just say it's 10 hours and you want to make $1 million. I'm not good at head math, but that tells you what an hour of your time is truly worth. All right. And what I want you to do is to honor that, because there's lots of people who are willing to work for you for much less than your time is worth to yourself. And your family has sent you off into the world to run your business that you want to run. You quit a real job. We've all quit real jobs and we're basically unemployable. And your family wants you to be successful. So they want you to do this exercise as well. And it just gives you, Vance, it helps to give you the courage to, for example, go out and find that one other person in the world who's really good at whatever it is that you might be good at, you might be interested in, but it's not the best use of your time. Again, I think in my profession, and I'm paid to think of creative ways to solve clients' legal problems. Like, I'm not actually paid to read paper. I'm not paid by the hour to do this or that. I'm paid to understand what problem you're trying to solve, to apply my over 40 years experience to that problem, and to come up with a solution, even if that solution is not hire Ben to do it. All right. That drives me and energizes me. Every single person on this call, Vance, has a very unique set of gifts, talents, and interests. I believe God-given, and I believe that your job on earth is to explode those things, the things that you're gifted at, you're talented at, you're interested in. Like, figure out what that is, find a place where the market will pay for it, because Lord knows you go to ClickFunnels, for example, and you see people doing the like, oh, I help women organize their closets and I make $5 million a year. Okay, God bless you. Like, interest, desire, the world will pay for it. Go find that thing and play in that space. Don't let anyone guilt you into doing things that you don't like doing and you're not good at. And I get it that this is hard. And people will say, oh, but you're Dan Kennedy. Oh, you're Ben Glass. True. But before I was here, I was there reading books like No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs and saying, if I'm going to change my life, I have to start putting in this philosophy and trying out these strategies. and rejecting the status quo, rejecting the naysayers. And then most importantly, because you and I both run mastermind groups, is finding groups like you run, Vance, and saying, I want to be in a room with people who are bigger, better, and smarter than I am. All right. Because that's how we get better. You're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. If you want to, if you cannot say, I'm happy going to work and I'm happy going home, or in your case, I'm happy going to my home office and I'm happy going to the out of my home office. If you cannot say that, right, with enthusiasm, then there's space to get better. And hanging out with guys like you, and if you're a lawyer, come hang out with me and my mastermind groups. We can help you move to that space. At the end of the day, the most important person is the person in the mirror in the morning. Like, that person is really, really important. No guru, no coach is going to fundamentally change your life unless you make a decision that you want to have something change. And I'll bet you that, if you've got a spouse, a husband, wife, partner, whatever, like, they would vote in favor of a life where you are happy going to work and you're happy coming home. And that's what Ben Glass stands for.
There you go. And I think that is a perfect spot to end, because that sums it all right up right there. With that happy at work, happy at home, because for a lot of us, that is what we are. Because you talk a little bit about that time or work-life balance for an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is life, and
it is life. Exactly right. It is not work-life balance. It is life, one of which you have. Yep. Journey one way, and you don't know how many days you have, right? Really. So it is life. And you're exactly right. People who talk about work-life balance don't know what they don't know what they're missing. I won't say they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're missing when they have narrowed the framework to work-life balance. This is life.
Yep. And it reminds me of Ted Lasso, the soccer player. Soccer is life.
Yeah.
But Ben, thank you so much for being on the Systematic Magic podcast. I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. Oh golly, the book. Where are we sending people to?
Go to Amazon. Go to Amazon. Again, we jammed Amazon up the first day it was available, and they actually ran out of books through Prime, and they had third-party sellers to try to buy it directly from Amazon through Prime. Dan, Kenny, and I would love to have this showing up on Amazon's bestseller list. We think it's a terrific book. It is just different from the other traditional time management books, and it's the simplest thing to do because Amazon is the everything store.
It certainly is. So I will have a link to the book in the show notes. And then if you're getting this announcement of the podcast by email or social media, I'll also have a link in there for everybody. Make it as easy peasy as possible for you.
Appreciate you, Mance. Yes, sir.
All right, Ben, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. And everybody else, we will talk to you soon. Thanks so much.